Welcome back to Steel Bear Academy. My name is Jonathan. Today we're going to be sharing the Smith Wesson 617. This is the 4-inch model. It comes in two different models. There's the 4-inch and the 6-inch. And this is a 22 long rifle, 10 shot revolver. Double action, single action. So you've got the double action down here, you pull the trigger, it will cock the hammer, and then it will release the hammer like so. You've also got the ability to be single action by cocking the hammer manually and lowering it. Ooh, there we go. So we don't want to dry fire 22s unless the manual specifically says we can. This is no exception. You want to make sure you don't dry fire the 22s as they are rimfire. So it's a 10-shot revolver. This is built on the K frame. It has a full underlug, you may have noticed. So real quick rundown of Smith & Wesson frame sizes. K frame is basically the smaller middle-sized frame. This is a K frame. This Model 19 here is also a K frame. It's mid-sized, middle smaller sized. And then there's the L frame, which is the 686 and 586. This is an L frame. It is just a little bit larger. Let's see, hopefully you can see the difference a little bit. It's larger in the window here, in the where the cylinder rests. That is a little bit larger. So it's a medium-sized gun, and it shoots 22 long rifle, which is really cool. It's all stainless steel. There's also a Smith & Wesson 17 you can get. That's a blued gun, more similar to the 19 or the 586 here. They are round frame guns, meaning you've got pretty much total interchangeability between all the round framed Smith & Wesson grip modules. So this is a Hogue G10 grip. This is not the gun. This is not the grip that came with it. I think it came with a Hogue mono grip. No, it came with a different one. It came with the Smith & Wesson standard rubber grip. So it's a little different than these ones. I don't have the original grip at the moment, but this is an upgraded grip, so it's not the one that comes with it. But this is a nice sturdy grip. I like this one. It comes with a partridge front sight, which is kind of unusual. So that's that kind of squared front sight. It's blacked out, as opposed to the red ramp, which we see on pretty much every Smith & Wesson revolver. It's this red ramp. It's present on the 586 as well. This is by far the most common front sight that you see on Smith revolvers. It has the standard rear sight though, the adjustable rear sight. It does have a key lock. You may have noticed that it does have a key lock back here, so that little hole right there. That's called the key lock. It's an eyesore, and in my opinion, a pretty dumb addition. Basically, you can take a little key that comes with the gun, and you can insert it in there and turn it. That would then raise a little flag here, behind or kind of next to the hammer. It would raise that flag, and it prevents the hammer from moving, therefore preventing the gun from being operable. It's not a very good thing to have, in my opinion. Nobody seems to like it, and I don't think it's ever saved anybody's life. And I think that in the future, I hope that Smith & Wesson gets rid of the key lock, because I don't think anybody likes them. And plus, they're really ugly. However, if you were so, put off by it, you can remove the locking portion of it. It's very easy to do that. You just take off the side plate and remove some parts. You can also fill in that little plug with a precision, I think it was like Precision Engineering. It's like a little a kit that this guy makes to fill it in with a plug if you want to make it look a little better. So there's not much to say about this other than it's a 22 revolver. It's kind of, the caliber is 22 long rifle, so you're pretty much going to be just using this for plinking. It's a good way to practice your revolver skills, your double action pull and your single action if you were so inclined. It's a cheaper way to shoot the calibers that we're used to shooting, like 357 Magnum or 44 Magnum or any of those other calibers that are more expensive to shoot. a 22 revolver is a great way to be able to shoot those more economically. Additionally, because revolvers are more challenging, in my opinion, to shoot, the triggers, I should say, they also are good just overall improvements to your skills. That if you want to get better, then a 22 revolver is a great way to get better without having to use the expensive caliber. And perhaps if it's your first revolver, investing in getting 357 Magnum or 38 Special as your new caliber that you're going to have to stock. So it's a really great way to enter into revolver world. It's also just a fun gun to shoot. You know, it's a fun plinker. It's fun to get out there at the range and just go through a lot of 22s because it's not that expensive to shoot 22. And yeah, it's not a very, it doesn't have a lot of hard purposes to it. You could certainly go out and hunt with this gun, but it's a pretty heavy gun, which we'll get to here in a second. Without further ado, I just want to give it some ratings. For trigger, I would give this gun an 8 out of 10. It's got a heavier pull than the centerfire revolvers. At least I'd say so. I'm not sure the exact weights on these, but subjectively, it feels heavier. And it also feels like it has a different breaking point, like it has a different spot where it releases the trigger. I'm not sure if that is, dimensionally correct as far as the trigger geometry, but it feels that way to me. And it's been my experience. Overall, I'd say the double action is quite smooth, and it has a nice single action. So the double action is pretty smooth. It's pretty smooth, and the single action is what you would expect from Smith & Wesson revolvers. I don't think it's any worse than these centerfire Smiths. I don't think it's any worse, but I don't think it's any better. So it's basically in line with what you would expect. Many people don't like the heavier mainsprings, essentially. You've got to have a heavier mainspring to be able to reliably ignite rimfire 22 long rifle. So that's part of why you have a heavier trigger pull. And it should feel different because it should have different springs in it. So it's an 8 out of 10. It's very good. It's pretty much as good as any other Smith, but it could be better. For reliability, this gun has given me a lot of problems. This is going to get a 3 out of 10. For one, 22 long rifle is known for a lack of reliability. It's just a caliber that is prone to light primer strikes and being inconsistent. It's a caliber not known for reliability or consistency. You can get a wide range of kind of quality control on 22 as well, because it's all about economy on 22. It's not really about reliability because it's not really used for super important purposes, self-defense and whatnot. It seemed, and I think by nature of just being a rimfire design, it's not known for its reliability. I'd say I get a failure to fire probably every 30 shots. So 1 out of 30 times it does not fire. And a failure to fire means, in this case, that I have a round in the chamber, and I go to pull the trigger and fire the round, and it releases the hammer, it hits the primer, or it hits the firing pin that pokes the primer, and it does not fire. Now, if you open up your cylinder, take out your round, you'll see there's going to be a little dent on that primer. That tells you that the gun worked. It tried to fire the round, but the round did not work. Now, you can take that same round, put it right back in there, and fire it again, and probably 9 times out of 10, it's going to fire the round. So it's not that the round was bad per se. That can happen, but it's not usually that. It's just that whatever happened, some magical combination didn't make it so that it hit just the right spot and ignited in the right way to make it fire. Additionally, on 22 revolvers, when you're shooting double action, the hammer does not come quite back as far as when you are shooting single action. So when you shoot single action, you have got the full power of the mainspring ready to slam that hammer back. And so single action should reliably ignite it more often. but most people are shooting these guns in double action a majority of the time. So just, it's something to be aware of, that this gun, I think it's doing as good a job as it can do, but it's held back by the nature of .22. It's not going to work 100% of the time like you're used to on centerfire revolvers or centerfire handguns or centerfire anything. So it's just something to be aware of. Additionally, when I first got this gun, I've had it for probably 6 months at this point. When I first got this gun, I would take it to the range and I would shoot it after having cleaned it fully, and I would shoot it maybe 20 rounds, meaning just 2 full cylinders. And after 2 full cylinders, I would go to load the next cylinder full, and I would try to close it, and it would get caught like right here, and it wouldn't go in any further. I'd have to push it quite hard, and it felt like the cylinder was bending forward, meaning like it was rotating in a direction that you don't want your cylinder to be rotating. It was not good. Nowadays, I've since sent it back to Smith Wesson to have it fixed, and it's changed. So I think that it does work now. I haven't shot it enough to know if that has that point of it getting so dirty that it can't close. Has that moved forward, from 20 rounds to 100 rounds? And if it's at 100 rounds, then I think I would be a little more okay with it. But after 20 rounds, that was unacceptable. That would be silly to have to clean your gun every 20 rounds. Additionally, when I first got this gun, so before I sent it back to Smith, my cylinder holes, the chamber holes, they were not cut uniformly. So some of them would load perfectly easily. You just kind of take your round and you slip it right in. Others, you kind of had to put it in. You put it in a little bit, and then you had to really shove it down into there. And that can be dirty, but it wasn't just that it was dirty. It was a combination of it being dirty plus not correctly cut. So I sent this gun back to Smith & Wesson to be fixed. They also asked me about making sure that my cylinder was correctly screwed onto my ejector rod, and it was, so that wasn't the issue. But what Smith & Wesson did was they replaced the cylinder, and what they did was they recut my forcing cone. So my forcing cone is this piece right here. It's that extension from the barrel that basically butts up against the front of the cylinder so that it can receive the round leaving the cylinder and coming into the barrel. So they said that they recut that. My guess is that they added a little bit of, or I should say they removed a little bit of material. That'd be my guess. They removed a little bit of material so that it has looser tolerances, so it doesn't get caught up in that way. All of which is to say, I had a lot of problems with this gun right at the very beginning, and I wanted to give Smith & Wesson an opportunity to fix it. And since having been fixed, it does seem to be working. I haven't shot it enough to know for sure if it's up to the 100% reliable. It was still having the light primer strikes. I think that's just part and parcel of any .22. But it gave me some pause. It made it feel like I don't really know if I want to invest other people's money. I already invested my money. It's too late for that. But if I was going to recommend it to other people. But I wanted to give Smith & Wesson an opportunity to try to fix it, and so far it seems like it's been fixed. It definitely shook my confidence in the product a little bit, but I want to give Smith & Wesson a fair shake and say it seems like what they did fixed it. I might do an update on it later on, but as of right now, it seems to have fixed it. So reliability, it's going to get a 3 out of 10 for me on this one. Maybe post being fixed, I would probably give it like maybe a 6 out of 10. It's still held back by it being .22. There's just no way around that. But the really low score is due to that this particular gun did not work from the factory. For durability, I would give this a 10 out of 10. It is an all stainless steel revolver, and I was especially impressed by how large the forcing cone is. So that forcing cone right there is very thick. And if you take a look at the barrel here, you can see that it is a really tiny hole compared to the material around the hole. You know, the material around the muzzle and the crown here. You compare that to the 19, you can see that there's a lot more material here. So this is a two-piece barrel design. Perhaps this isn't a good example. Let's take a look at this one. So you can see in there that there's a lot more material around the 22. And that's to be expected. They basically are using a very similar barrel shroud or a similar barrel assembly and just making it smaller because they don't need to get rid of as much material. All in all, I think this makes for a very, very durable gun. I don't think this gun has any points of like wear failure aside from springs. You know, that's just a replaceable part. But as far as like the durability of this gun, I think this thing is a tank. It is way overbuilt for 22, and it reflects it. It is very heavy. Additionally, Smith & Wesson, the design of the revolvers, you know, these have a very good reputation. All the K frames, the L frames, the J frames, and the X frame, I think, also has a pretty good reputation. All those frames, they've been around so long. They've got tons and tons of people who have bought them and used them. There's pretty much no question about how reliable and durable they are. It's a 10 out of 10 for sure. For the ease to learn, I would give the ease to learn this gun a 9 out of 10. It's super easy to operate, as are all revolvers. It has absurdly low recoil, like almost none. Like you pull the trigger and it feels like the gun is just slightly nudging in your hand because it's so darn heavy. And because of that low recoil, it pretty much makes it so that there's no anticipation whatsoever. You're pretty much not even going to worry about anticipating your shots because it's so light recoil that psychologically it doesn't even really factor in that you're shooting a gun. However, it's a 9 out of 10 because double action triggers are harder to learn. But the low recoil kind of makes up for it. So I think that this is as close to a super easy gun to learn as possible. I think the only way that you could get pretty much a better, easier to learn gun is if like you had a single action only 22. I think that's like a single action only double action 22, if that makes sense. Like the swing out cylinder, basically. Single action revolvers are pretty easy to learn, but they are a little more complicated, slightly. But 9 out of 10, this gun is incredibly easy to learn. However, I would be cautious about giving this to, or I should say, having this be a learner gun for some people. And the reason I say that is because it is very heavy. Like, it's hard to explain how visually it looks the same as a 19, almost the same. It has a full underlug here, which is different. You know, this only has the half underlug. But you hold this gun and you compare it to this gun is markedly lighter. And partly that is because it has the underlug, that's just a heavier feature. But it's also all this material that you've got in the barrel, and I think all this material, well, I guess it's not that much material in the cylinder. Perhaps it's not the cylinder, it's probably just the barrel. It is a very hefty gun. As such, if you're somebody who is first learning, this is going to be a very fatiguing gun to shoot. Even though it has really low recoil, it's very fatiguing to shoot. And this kind of gets into my next category, so I'll just tell you the score now. The shootability, it's an 8 out of 10. So shootability is like ease of shooting and pleasantness of shooting. So it almost has no recoil. However, it loses points for being so darn heavy. Yeah, recoil is almost non-existent, but because it's so heavy and front heavy, it's tiring to shoot it just due to the weight. So for somebody who's brand new, I would probably recommend getting a lighter gun. Weight is good because it reduces recoil, but at some point a gun is too heavy to be able to shoot for a long time. So that's kind of why lighter frame gun is so often drawn, people are drawn to lighter guns so frequently because they're so much less fatiguing to hold, especially when you're trying them out at the gun store. You don't have to feel the weight and the annoyance of holding something out in the firing position, especially when you've got 10 rounds. If you're going for precision shooting, it's going to be pretty darn tiring. For value, I would give this a 5 out of 10. It is very high quality, no doubt. It's as good as a Smith Wesson revolver should be. However, it costs just as much as a full-size revolver. So most people draw the comparison between the 686 and the 617. This is a 586, but you get the idea. The 586 and 686 are essentially the same gun, just different colors. So you've got basically the similar form factor. They both got the full underlug. So a lot of people draw the comparison that they're basically the same gun. They are not. They are different frame sizes. So you've got the K frame and the L frame. However, they both cost roughly the same price, and they both look very similar. This one's just a little smaller, as you can see. And people, including myself, have come to expect that a .22 pistol probably should cost less than a full-size counterpart. However, in this particular case, the construction is almost the same. So it doesn't really make any sense that it would cost any less. However, for value, because there are so many lower priced and also very good .22 pistols, it's hard to consider this amazing value. I think it is good value, and it's high quality. It just costs kind of a lot for a .22, if that makes sense. But maybe that's just a consumer mindset about how much a gun should cost. I would say if I was looking for another .22 pistol, another .22 revolver in particular, I used to look to the GP100. The GP100, the Ruger GP100 is the kind of main flagship alternative to the Smith & Wesson revolvers. That, along with the SP101, which is kind of like a large J frame or a small K frame, if that makes sense. Those guns used to be known for being lesser priced than a Smith, and they are to a degree, but they're not nearly as they're not nearly as large of a price difference as they used to be. So that is another option for a .22 revolver, is the GP100 in .22 or the SP101 in .22 as well. For carryability, I would give this gun a 2 out of 10. It is absurdly heavy for a .22 carry gun. When we think .22 carry guns, we're thinking like really, really light guns, and also usually really, really small guns. This is a full-size K-frame, essentially. It's maybe not full-size, but it's pretty darn close. It's medium-sized. And K-frames are not that bad to carry. I've carried a K-frame, and it's not bad, but it is certainly heavy. And this gun is very heavy. So it's a 2 out of 10. You'd be hard-pressed to want to carry this gun if that was your choice. Maybe for hunting, little game, squirrels and groundhogs and that kind of thing, but it'd be pretty hard. You'd be pretty hard-pressed to want to carry this gun. It's very heavy. Additionally, it is a K-frame, so it's got the ease of finding a holster. However, it's an unusual K-frame. Most K-frames don't have a full underlug. Most K-frames look like this. They've got the half lug, is usually what they call this. So the 66 and the 17 and the 66, and that might be the only K-frames they make at the moment. But this is an anomaly. You probably could fit it in the same holster as a 686 or a 586. They're probably close enough. But if you're looking for an exact fit, this gun, my guess is it probably doesn't have that many options for an exact fit due to that full underlug. So what are my conclusions about this gun? I really want to like this gun. And in truth, I do like this gun. I'm a big Smith Wesson fan. As you can see, I've got quite a few here. However, I don't know if I just got a dud with this particular gun, but my experience about the 617 has been pretty lackluster. The fact that it came from the factory, being unreliable, was unfortunate. However, it's forgivable. I was originally gonna kind of bash this gun a little bit harder, but I wanted to give Smith & Wesson credit because they did fix the issue I was having, and it's a little unfair to not let the manufacturer try to fix their problem, especially if they do it on their own dime, which Smith & Wesson did. They paid for all the shipping, and all it took me was some time to package it, basically. So I want to give Smith some credit. However, my conclusion is that if you want a 617, just know that mine had problems right out of the gate. And those problems may require a trip to sending it back to Smith & Wesson. However, if you are willing to accept that potential, I think that it's a very cool revolver, and I'm certainly not going to sell this one because this is actually this is a birthday gift to me from my family. So I'm essentially choosing to like it perhaps more than a new potential customer might, but even then, it's still a great revolver. It's just, it had some problems out the gate, and I think if you give Smith a chance to fix it, if it does, then I think you'll be very pleased with it. Just, make sure you give them that time and don't expect it to be perfect right out of the box and throw it to the side if it doesn't. So I hope this has been helpful for you. And if you love your Smith & Wesson, let me know. I'd be curious to hear if other people's experience is different. From what I read, pretty much everybody loves these guns. I just wanted to put my experience out there to show you that not every manufacturer makes a perfect product every time, and hopefully we can get them to make a better one. But in the meantime, this one's a great one if you give them the time to fix it. Thanks very much for listening. See you next time. Bye-bye.